Okay, hi everyone. From time to time, right, I actually get people who email me questions, and I'll try my best to answer them. And I actually got this very generic question from somebody, and this person is actually asking where is the Singapore property market heading. So I thought that uh, it would be good for me to give my 2 cents worth of where I think the property market is heading. But instead of doing that, I won't come to a conclusion to tell you where exactly the property market is headed for, but I will show you some facts and figures, what I've done, some research, and maybe from there, you guys can actually have a better understanding of where the Singapore property market is heading. In your opinion, uh, in my opinion, I do think that we may be quite close to the peak, and there is more resistance for prices going up rather than and less resistance for prices to fall. Yeah, so in essence, this question is actually asking me to touch on the property market outlook, and for that, I normally ask you guys to understand the property price index, and I made some videos about how you use the URA website and yeah, to find information, or like maybe to use some research tools on some other websites for you to try to find information which may be useful to help you in your buying decision. And the good thing about Singapore property market is that the data is pretty much very transparent. You have just about every single data that you may require to make a more informed decision as a buyer or a seller. And yeah, so information is easily available. And let's understand the property price index. Okay, so for us to measure whether property prices go up or down, we have to take a base period. Okay, so in Singapore, the base quarter is Q1 2009. So in the first quarter of year 2009, we assume that property prices are at 100%, okay, or 100. So when you see like property price index with a number, right, is most probably like a 2 digit or 3 digit number, because it will most probably be something slightly below 100 or above 100. It's either below 100 or above 100, because the base year, sorry, the base quarter is actually first quarter 2009. So at Q1 2009, the property price was at 100. Okay, so we take it that that's 100%. Okay, so how does this work? Okay, so you take a look at where we are currently. So this is actually the private residential property price index, and the source which I got it from is actually from data.gov.sg. So if you guys want to know the property price index, this is the price index which is selling price. Okay, so properties that were transacted, how much more expensive are they compared to base quarter Q1 2009? Okay, so uh, Q3 2018, the private residential property price index was at 149.7. So what it means is that it is 49.7% more expensive than Q1 2009. So since Q1 2009, property prices, transacted prices have increased 49.7%. Okay, but okay, so this is actually the graphical representation of the price index. So as you can see, right, uh, Singapore property prices do not go up in a straight line. They do fall. So you can see that since like 95, uh, 97 was a huge drop. And then after that, this is actually the dot-com bubble, and it went down. So from after this, it went down, and then it went like really flattish for a long period of time. Then this period of time, it went all the way up. This is actually the uh, global financial crisis which happened, um, like Lehman Brothers fell and everything. So this period of time, the prices did go down, and then from that period of time, right, because there was like a lot of expansionary monetary stimulus from the US government, then asset prices across the world actually went up. So it went all the way up, and then at this point in time, the Singapore government came out with the cooling measures in 2013. The one that hit the most and caused prices to come down was actually the total debt servicing ratio. So at this point in time, right, it came down all the way. Then in 2017 around there, somewhere in 2017, it actually started going up. So like it took like I think 13 quarters to come down, and then after just a couple of quarters, right, it's almost back at the last peak already. So the Singapore government actually came in with a new set of cooling measures. They increased the buyer stamp duty, and now acquiring multiple properties is actually starting to get pretty costly in Singapore. Yeah, so this is actually the property market outlook. It's important for buyers to take note that Singapore property prices do not travel up in a straight line. So it is important to actually know the price trend, and then after that make informed decisions as to how you think the property market will actually turn out to be. So this is actually the property price index. So let's look at the private residential property rental index. So for the same quarter, right, in 2018 quarter 3, the rental index is actually 104.1. So what it means is that since Q1 2009, rents have increased 4.1%. Okay, so rents have increased 4.1%, but then prices have increased 49.7%. So this is something that you guys have to take note. So if you're buying and saying that I want to rent it out for good rental income, then you may be in for quite a shock unless you're maybe willing to accept low rental yield. Then you may purchase for good rental income, and of course this is whole island. So there are places whereby it's easier to rent, and the rent is pretty much very healthy. So just take note that rents have not been increasing as fast as prices. So it's something to take note of. So you may decide to instead of buy to rent, you may want to come up with a strategy whereby you think that maybe prices may increase over the course of the next maybe 5 to 10 years. Then you may purchase something for capital appreciation instead, rather than purchase and acquire just to rent out. Okay, so this is actually the rental market. So if you see, right, the rental prices actually went all the way up, and this was actually at the peak. So it's about 2007 was the peak. So after the financial crisis actually fell, then the rental prices started to climb back up. It's actually quite similar price point to here, and after that it started falling all the way. And now if you take a look at like non-landed whole island, this is the orange line. So here this peak, right, was never breached ever since like 2008. So this was actually the peak of the market, and after that the rents really started to dip, and after that it climbed back up, but then it started dipping again. Okay, so like I said, all this information is actually available on data.gov.sg, so you can see the rental trend and the price trend. Okay, so like I mentioned, the price index is actually 149.7 versus the rental index of 104.1. So that means that in the time that prices increased by 49.7%, right, the rental prices actually increased by 4.1% only. Okay, so the prices have increased more than 10 times what the prices of rents have increased. So like as in the rate of increase or the percentage increase is actually more than 10 times. Okay, so we also have to take a look at the pipeline supply of private residential units, and we can actually make a decision to see whether there is more upward pressure on prices moving upwards, or resistance on prices falling. So it's important now that we see the rental and resale price index or private property price index, then we also have to see what is the supply coming on board to make a more informed decision. So this information is actually available on ura.gov.sg, and I have a video previously whereby I mentioned how to search for property market data on the URA website. So you please take a look at that. Is actually on my explainer video price list. Explainer video playlist. Okay, and then so the pipeline supply figures refer to new development and redevelopment projects with planning approvals. So that means the the plan for the development has already been approved. So you can be sure that the developer, when they purchase the plot of land, then they got to submit their plans and everything to URA. Then URA approves it, then they will include the number of units inside the pipeline supply figures. So like okay, so like this is actually in 2017. This is actually the pipeline supply of private residential units and executive condominiums by expected year of completion as at fourth quarter 2017. So you can see like expected year of completion 2018, right? The total number of units is 14,764. Then at that point in time, this is actually the number that is actually shown on the URA website. Then you move forward to fourth quarter 2018, because URA will actually release quarterly pipeline supply figures, and these numbers will actually change. So you can't look at them and say that oh, because 2022, right, there's only going to be 4,348 units. That's not true, because there are still some developments whereby they are in the pipeline and the planning approvals have not been approved. So this figure is not complete. So if you see like 1 year down the road, right, you see like 2022, 1 year ago, 2022 figures was 4,348. But if you take a look at this figure as of fourth quarter 2018, right, the number balloons up to 19,208 units. That's because there were quite a lot of developers who went and purchased developments en bloc, and then after that, they also purchased land from the government. So this figure actually bumped up, and then after that, yeah, so you can see like then you will still ask the same question, like also 2023 is like 7,308 units, so it's going to be lesser and lesser. But that's not true again, because land will again be bought, and then after that, more and more planning approvals will come on board. So we need to take note of that these figures may grow over time, because more and more planning approvals are approved by URA. Then URA will top up the number here. But take note of this 19,208 units. So you can see right from here, right, there's actually in the pipeline 42,173 units that are going to come on board, and then in 1 year, right, there's actually 54,332. So that the figure actually increased by about 12,000. So there's quite a lot of units that are going to come on board, and the peak, in my opinion, will be somewhere here 2022. 2023 figures should be quite high as well, because we still have quite a lot of planning approvals to quite a lot of condominiums that have their planning approvals approved, then we have not added here. Like I don't think this figure actually includes like developments like Treasure at Tampines. So Treasure at Tampines is 2,203 units, I think. So you still have to add like that figure to this 7,308, and then as time goes by, like this year, it's slated that there's going to be like 60 new project launches. So all these 60 new project launches, right, will actually add to this figure as well, to these figures in general. Okay, so fourth quarter of 2019, which is this year, then you can compare, and then you can see the clearer picture of the number of units coming on board in the later stages, next few years. Yeah, so I need to tell everyone that prices are determined by demand and supply. Okay, so a lot of sales agents, they always tell buyers, um, the price is going to increase because the developer paid a higher price for the next plot of land. So like because somebody paid a higher price for the next plot of land, therefore your price should increase uh, to match that developer's higher purchase price. But I have never seen that mentioned in any school of thought in any uh, economic literature. So like uh, I don't think it's taught ever in any economic class that just because somebody paid a higher price for the next plot of land, right? Therefore, this plot of land, the price definitely increase. So prices are always determined by demand and supply. So you must always see what is the supply that is coming on board, and you make a more informed decision whether there's demand to match that supply. So currently, in my opinion, right, it's definitely a buyer's market now. But for how long is unclear, because you must understand that it will definitely be a buyer's market someday. When it was a seller's market, right, everyone was thinking that it's going to be a seller's market forever. But then uh, things turn around pretty quickly, and then now suddenly it's a buyer's market. So like the same time this time last year, right, people were thinking that the market is going to increase by what 10%, and then like there were reports from uh, like investment banks that were speculating that Singapore property prices were going to increase by double digits. So uh, it is very important to take note that the government can just step in, and then it can impose stamp duties or loan restrictions, and then the market can just turn overnight, which it definitely did. Okay, so it's important to note that there's a lot of supply coming on board. So we have to think that we have to understand and maybe decipher whether there is sufficient demand uh, to take up this incoming supply. So we have to learn and understand that demand and supply are the reasons why prices move. So we have to recognize that the government plays a role, a very large role, especially in Singapore, when it comes to investing in property. So immigration policies also play a large role. Stamp duties, as you guys know, because of the additional buyer stamp duty, increase in additional buyer stamp duties, therefore this market actually uh, turned from uh, very bullish sentiment to something very that is pretty much not so bullish anymore. And then they also place loan restrictions. So Thailand is also doing the same thing. Like the Thai government actually came up with loan restrictions for Thai buyers who are buying multiple properties. I'm quite familiar with the market, so I can actually tell you that the local Thais are also buying multiple properties, and they are holding properties. So like I know of like Thais who have like 10 properties, and then they're just buying one and then using the rental income of the first one to apply for financing for the second one, or they don't even put down any down payment. They just like book the unit, and then after that they slowly service the periodic installment or down payment. So actually the government steps in and then says that now for the second property onwards you have to put uh, a sizable down payment as compared to before when booking a property. So all these things uh, affect the Thai property market as well, and it definitely does affect the Singapore property market. Okay, so this is actually the Singapore citizen property growth chart. Okay, so you can actually see the total number of Singapore citizens citizenship granted, right, is actually quite flat. But just now when I showed you the graph about the rental thing, right? Yeah, so you can see that the peak of the rent was actually back here, right? Around 2008. And if you see the number of PRs that are granted here, that was the peak as well. So there are lots of permanent residencies granted at that point in time, and then all these people actually they will demand properties, right? So this is the main reason why demand was pretty much quite high. But at this point in time, the ruling government didn't do so well in the elections that followed, then what happens is that they actually tapered down the PR application approval rate, and then from 79,000 now our PR application approval rate is about 29,000 plus. Yeah, so you can see that the uh, rental price index is pretty weak. This point was the record high, and for a good reason, because if we see the population growth, right, you can actually understand that at that point in time demand was pretty high because there were loads of PR applications which were granted to the applicants. Okay, so you can see demand and supply actually do match up. Okay, so it's actually important to understand the government policy and then uh, try to decipher where this market is actually uh, moving to. So if let's say you think that in time to come the Singapore government may approve more PRs, approve more citizenships for whatever reason, then that's where demand is going to come from. Okay, so this is actually the Singapore citizen growth rate. Yeah, so it's pretty flattish. So like we have problem with our birth rate as well. Okay, so I would like to speak about some myths about buying property. So the myth number one is that if you buy a new launch, right, you sure make money. I think in some of my videos, right, I've really shown you guys that I've shown you guys a new launch whereby everyone loses money. Everyone is either sitting on paper loss or everybody who has sold has lost money. So it's not true that when you buy a new launch, you sure make money. You have to know which new launch to buy, or you have to know which units to buy in the new launch, and also buy at the right time. Okay, so the myth number two, right, is that you can buy auction properties or you wait for bank sale. Uh, it's a huge myth because even if a bank repossesses a property, right, they can't just sell it. If let's say the property value is like 1 million, they can't sell it to you for 500,000. They have to sell it as high a price as possible. It's just that maybe it's a little bit price is maybe a little bit more flexible because the bank is taking over, so there's no emotional attachment as the seller. So a lot of people come to me and say, "Wow, if you got auction property or bank sale, you please call me." But what do you mean by auction property or bank sale? You are thinking that you can get properties at half off. That has never happened before. So yeah, the bank can't just sell a $1 million property for 500,000 and then uh, don't care about how much money is actually returned. So if let's say somebody owes the bank money and then he doesn't pay, the bank can repossess his property. But the bank has to sell at a as high as possible market price. If not, then they can't just sell to take back the money that they are owed. They have to sell at a reasonable price and then take back their money, and the balance actually have to return to the homeowner. Okay, so myth number three is that properties near upcoming train lines are a sure win. Please understand that when you buy properties near upcoming train lines, you must understand that sometimes you are paying prices ahead of time. That means that maybe the train line is going to come on board 6-7 years time, but actually today the price increase has already been priced in already. Okay, so please take note. Then next, right, a lot of people say never mind, I got a lot of time, I want to slowly wait for market to crash then buy. Okay, so the thing is that if market crash, trust me, you will not buy. It takes a lot of guts to actually purchase uh, property when there is really a huge financial recession. So at that point in time whereby, let me give you an example. When I bought a property uh, when Lehman Brothers collapsed, and it was out of necessity. So I bought it for like about 140 something thousand dollars, and then eventually, right, I sold that property for about 400 plus thousand. The returns are pretty phenomenal, and but at that point in time, right, I could have bought much larger properties, and I had the money, but I didn't dare to, because like imagine when I go to the banker will say, "Huh, you dare to buy?" Now it's like really really bad. Then after that, when I go to like everyone, like really no one wants to buy property at that point in time. Even like I tell people around me, right, they'll be thinking like you must be crazy because it's going to crash like even more. So why do you want to buy now? And by the time you actually uh, get the guts to go and buy, right, you may realize that the property market has already recovered already. So this is the normal trend that most people will face. Okay, so it's actually a myth that everyone wants to wait for the market to crash. But the point is that actually at the point in time when market crash, right, when you are asked to make a purchase, you will make your own excuse to say why you think you're going to crash further and then don't buy now. So uh, try to understand that if let's say you have the financial capability to purchase a property, never purchase the property by stretching your finances, and then always have holding power and try to do some homework, decipher whether uh, this particular area is oversupplied or where's the demand going to come from. Know the more macro type of scenario which I hopefully have touched on in this video, and then try to make a more informed decision when it comes to like buying property. So just for because I said I tend to make it seem like uh, property market is like really bad, right? Yeah, but in actual fact, Singapore is in top 10 in terms of average wealth per adult. So the number of millionaires in Singapore, right, is 152,000, and uh, if I'm not wrong, 1 in 10 Singapore residents is actually a millionaire. So you go out on the road, you see 10 people, one of them is actually a millionaire. The number of high net worth individuals here, right, is growing at a faster rate of 15.3%. And so by 2022, right, the number of millionaires here is expected to grow to 170,000. So the high net worth individuals are also expected to grow to just over 1,000 high net worth individuals. So Singapore is really seen as a safe haven. A lot of people want to put their monies here. It's seen as a financial hub, which is easy and safe for overseas businesses to set up office here, do their business here, and our government does not change. It's safe. Our government has been in power uh, since like independence, and then uh, the ruling party is not expected to lose control of parliament, so they can actually project policies and plan decades ahead, unlike other governments. So like if you take a look at maybe like what's happening in the United States of America, so they once um, once Donald Trump came on board, he actually did away with Obamacare. So whatever Obama has been doing for his 2 tenures as president, the next president comes in and then after that they undo the work that the previous president has done. So it's quite hard for a country to plan ahead. And if you take a look at what's happening with Brexit, and uh, Hong Kong is starting to see interference from China, then a lot of people are actually looking at Singapore and thinking that maybe uh, it's not so much worth the trouble trying to stay in Hong Kong or the United Kingdom, and then they're actually moving their funds and they are moving their business operations to a more stable place like Singapore. Yep. So that's all for my presentation today, and I hope I've answered that question from that individual. But yeah, so if you guys have any questions, you can just drop me an email, and then after I'll try to answer them as factually as possible. And yeah, I hope that this has been useful to everyone out there who's watching this. And if you are not already subscribed, please try to hit the subscribe button. And yeah, so I'll see you at the next video.